Part 14. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 131. Besides Sun Qiniang, who else? After so long, she is actually in Nanfangfang City? I thought that Sun Qiniang would go to Yaezhu to prepare for entering the secret realm. As a result, she not only stayed in Yunzhou, but also stole things here? Zuyun couldn't laugh or cry in his heart. I was a robber in my last life, but now I am a female thief. No, he is also a robber. How could there be such an arrogant female thief? Zuyun looked towards the sky, and sure enough he saw Sun Qiniang standing on her ice-blue sword, facing the wind, with a heroic appearance. Just listen to her whispering, "Old man, I told you back then, give me a foundation building pill. If you wanted to sleep with my body, I wouldn't care about you anymore." Hearing such powerful words, Zuyun couldn't help but blush. This Sun Qiniang has been reborn, and she looks to be only 15 or 16 years old at this time. But she opened her mouth and said it was my mother, and she was sleeping like a wolf, and Zuyun also shook his head slightly when he heard this. He still doesn't know much about this aspect. Even if you add in the time in the mirror, it seems like decades have passed. But most of them are cultivating, and not many people are walking outside. Little witch. Since when have I ever wanted to sleep with you? Don't be slanderous. Ha ha ha, you wanted to sleep with me when I was a little girl. Are you afraid you have forgotten? What? With so many people in the city watching, you don't dare to admit it? Sun Qiniang laughed loudly. Even though she was only in the early stage of foundation building, she didn't take the workshop leader seriously. Zuyun secretly thought in his heart, the mutated ice spirit root does have something to rely on. Little witch, it's you. There was a sound of surprise and anger from the shop owner, and Sun Qiniang said disdainfully, I told you that I want a foundation building pill. If you are such a big shop, give me one. What's wrong? Such movement in mid-air attracted people in the city to look up one after another. The market is indeed mine, but the things in these shops are not mine. You robbed those shops over and over again, how could it be as simple as getting the foundation establishment pill? The boss roared. Hee, that's your business, not my business. If you want to fight, then fight quickly. If you don't want to fight, I'll find another den pavilion and check it out. Court death. The shop owner was furious, and a huge amount of spiritual power rose into the sky and blasted towards Sun Qiniang. It's a small trick. So what if your realm is higher than my mother's? Sun Qiniang's figure was agile and she controlled the ice-blue sword like a flexible swift. Her huge spiritual power was unable to do anything to her. The strength has greatly increased. Zuyun's heart moved slightly. No wonder Sun Qiniang was so arrogant. It turned out that she also had the capital. Unexpectedly, at this time, the shop owner suddenly smiled and said, Little witch, let's see where you run this time. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard a low roar, and the entire city suddenly emitted numerous strange auras. There is evil spirit here. Zuyun was shocked. He had killed tens of thousands of monsters near Wangxiansec's sea area. How could he not recognize this aura? Are there monsters in the city? Impossible. Ordinary monsters are equivalent to the qi refining stage. How could it be possible to trap Sun Qiniang? And those who are stronger, already have spiritual wisdom, will definitely not be controlled by this boss. Just when he was surprised, he saw evil spirits rising from all directions into the sky. Zuyun looked up and saw all the demonic energy turning into a ball in mid-air, all under the control of the boss. I saw him muttering something in his mouth. This demonic aura was like a prison that trapped the sky, and it covered the entire city in it. Little witch, look at my 10,000 demon array condensed with 10,000 demon pills, how about it? There was an awe-inspiring aura all around, and Sun Qinyang's pretty face finally showed an anxious look. She naturally felt that she was trapped in the 10,000 demon array, and could not feel the spiritual energy outside Fangxi at all. Come after me if you dare. Sun Qinyang bit her silver teeth secretly, then quickly landed and rushed into a shop. Hee, no matter how fast you are, you will eventually run out of spiritual power. I am in a higher realm than you, so I am not afraid that you will still have a place to hide. The shop owner also landed, and followed Sun Qinyang into the shop unhurriedly. Boom! Sun Qinyang broke out of the shop window and entered another shop. The shop owner, who had suffered a tragic loss, did not dare to speak loudly at all. He could only watch Sun Qinyang running away in a panic, while the shop owner turned a blind eye. Zhu Yun kept his eyes locked on Sun Qinyang, and before the blink of an eye, several shops had been destroyed. The shop owner is calm and confident, just like playing a cat and mouse game. As he walked, he muttered to himself, if I hadn't been busy killing sea monsters in the past few years, how would I have allowed you to come and go freely in the city? After hearing this, Zhu Yun also felt disdainful. Kill the sea monster? You have deceived many monks who are in the qi refining stage. But having said that, even the foundation building monks guarding the gate have changed to the qi refining stage. It seems that the wave of sea monsters here is not simple. Presumably they were also sent to the sea. Zhu Yun looked into the distance and saw that the waves were gentle and there was nothing unusual at this time. It seems that the beast tide was trapped in the distance. He vaguely felt something was wrong, but he didn't think about it. He is going to Yeazhu soon, and Yunzhou is already the place he misses. As for that home, just hide it in your heart. While thinking about it, shopkeeper Li suddenly appeared behind him. Little friend Yun, as per your request, all the materials have been replaced. Fortunately, the boss of the workshop was late. If it had been a few minutes in the morning, I'm afraid there would be a lot of excitement here. Zhu Yun smiled but didn't say anything. He took the storage bag without counting it. He was just thinking about whether to help Sun Qinyang. To help her is to become the enemy of the boss. But if he doesn't help her, he will be trapped in this array of monsters. After thinking about it, Zhu Yun smiled bitterly. Sun Qinyang, I didn't want to have anything to do with you anymore, but I never thought that fate would play tricks on people. Seeing that Sun Qinyang was not in danger at this time, Zhu Yun was happy to watch the show. Instead, he asked shopkeeper Li curiously, Shopkeeper Li, do you know where this little witch came from? Shopkeeper Li shook his head and said, I remember the first time she went to smash up the shop owner's house. The shop owner wasn't around at the time, and this little witch made everything go crazy. Zhu Yun smiled secretly in his heart. Sun Qinyang turned out to be restrained in front of her. It is said that a country is easy to change, but a person's nature is hard to change. If a dog changes, he will not eat shit. I'm afraid that's the case. It's just that she actually wanted to find the foundation establishment pill for herself, so it's amazing that she stayed here for so long. If she were to know that she had successfully established the foundation, she would probably be very resentful. A fight with him is a trivial matter. Shopkeeper Li, doesn't this huge market have a foundation building pill? Zhu Yun asked again. There were quite a lot of foundation establishment pills a few years ago. But since the beast wave came, there has been a shortage. They have a price but no market. Why? Zhu Yun's heart tightened when he heard the beast tide, but he asked without changing his expression. Actually, if it was a beast tide, it would be easier to handle. The owner of the workshop deceived some higher-level qi refining monks, promising the benefits of the foundation establishment pill, and countless qi refining monks came. But later, there were monks from the sea area who took advantage of the situation and robbed them. The boss just has too much to worry about. Anyone who has reached the 12th level of qi refining can receive a foundation building pill as long as he is willing to work for him. Sea monk. Zuyun was shocked. There are still monks in this sea? Yes, the sea area is even poorer than Yunzhou's aura, but the sea area is so big that naturally there are many more natural materials and earthly treasures than Yunzhou. Therefore, there are 36 caves and so many forces in the sea area, which are comparable to Yunzhou. There are so many states. This. Zuyun was shocked. He had only heard of two sects in Yunzhou. One was the Lingjian section. It was a rotten sect, but it could still dominate one side. The other one is Wangxian sect, which has long been deserted. But when I heard shopkeeper Li say, 36 caves? How could it not be amazing? Because of this, the little witch turned over everything but couldn't find a foundation building pill. But she comes to cause trouble almost every day, and the boss is almost attacked from three sides. Shopkeeper Li shook his head and said, in this case, shopkeeper Li can't do this business, so why don't you leave here? Leave? Where to go? Shopkeeper Li shook his head and said, no matter how bad Yunzhou is, it is still much better than Chuzhu. Zuyun's heart moved and he thought of the skeleton and said, is shopkeeper Li from Chuzhu? Yes, Chuzhu. At least there are no dangerous monsters on the land in Yunzhou, but Chuzhu, it is no exaggeration to say, is not a place for people to stay at all. A person like me who is in the foundation building stage with little strength, might leave on the way. A fire burst out of the ground and burned me to ashes. Zuyun had read in books and knew that the environment in Chuzhu was harsh, but he didn't know that it was so bad. Then why doesn't the shopkeeper go to Yezhu? Isn't Chuzhu bordering Yezhu and is it a holy land for monks? Hearing this, shopkeeper Li looked surprised and asked, who told you that Yezhu is a holy land? I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 132. Didn't you say that all the monks in Yunzhou want to go to Yezhu? The old and black couple Zuyun knew also went to Yezhu. In addition, Sun Suanhua also came from Yezhu. Even those disciples of Lingjian sect who are relatively talented will be sent to Wanjian mountain. It seems that everyone who wants to leave Yunzhou must go to Yezhu. Even Meng Wei told him how good Yezhu was. That's a monk from Yunzhou, he can only go to Yezhu. Shopkeeper Li seemed to wake up the dreamer at a glance and said, Yunzhou is almost surrounded by the Hongduan mountains. Over the mountains is Yezhu. And the other way out is the sea. But how can ordinary monks dare to go to sea? Besides, where to go after going to sea? Zuyun suddenly realized, then why did shopkeeper Li come from Chuzhu to Yunzhou again? Shopkeeper Li smiled bitterly and said, with my strength, Yunzhou is the safest place. You must know that Yunzhou is barren, and it is impossible to get out of the core formation stage. I am still in the early stage of foundation building. Not to mention that I can beat others, at least it's okay to bluff people. Zuyun wanted to ask something else, but a burst of spiritual power suddenly came from in front of him. He looked up and saw Sun Qiniang running around in circles. While he was talking, she had already rushed over here. Not good. Zuyun was shocked, and shopkeeper Li also said with a trembling voice, don't come in here. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard the sound of shattering coming from the door below. Sun Qiniang didn't even push the door open, but cut it into pieces with a sword. Not far behind her, the boss followed closely behind. Even at this time, he had speeded up, unlike before, hanging far behind Sun Qiniang. Zuyun cursed in his heart, thinking that Sun Qiniang would break out the window immediately after breaking into the door. But at this moment, she cut a hole in the back wall of the store with another sword, and then quietly ran to the second floor. This scene seems familiar. Isn't it the same move he took with Sun Qiniang in the weapon refining room in the Lingjian Sex Valley to perform a move during the foundation building period? But at that time, Zuyun climbed out of the window. But this time Sun Qiniang did the opposite. Sure enough, while Sun Qiniang was still at the corner of the stairs, the shop owner had already rushed out of the hole in the wooden wall. Sun Qinyang took the opportunity and rushed to the second floor. Zuyun. She was stunned for a moment. Hey, long time no see, Sun Qinyang. Zuyun also looked embarrassed. Shopkeeper Li had a strange expression. First, when Zuyun was still a little baby, he lied to him and said his name was Yunzu. Secondly, he actually knows this little witch. It still seems quite familiar. Okay, I worked hard to get you the foundation building pill, but you succeeded in building the foundation. Sun Qinyang saw that Zuyun's aura was different. Although his spiritual power was not obvious, he could see it at a glance and couldn't help but cursed. Zuyun smiled bitterly and said, I didn't tell you to get the foundation establishment pill at that time. I thought you went to Yeazhu. Humph. Do you think I am as heartless and unjust as you? You are really capable of leaving as soon as you say it. Sun Qinyang's face was full of anger, and she completely forgot that she was being chased by the boss. I think. Zuyun touched his nose and said, you'd better find a way to get out of here first. Humph, I won't run away anymore, why don't you love me? Sun Qinyang snorted coldly, tilted her hands to her chest, and said angrily to Zuyun. But shopkeeper Li's face instantly turned the color of a bitter gourd. Auntie, if you don't run away, you will hurt me. The shop owner will think that I have tipped you off. As soon as he finished speaking, the roof suddenly exploded. Only a bang was heard, and the boss stepped on a flying sword, looking down from a high position. I wonder why I can't find you every time. So you have a base in the city. As he said that, his eyes flashed with anger and he slapped it down with a palm. In an instant, evil spirits arose everywhere. Zuyun didn't have time to wonder why the shop owner was so weird, so he grabbed shopkeeper Li and jumped out of the window. Sun Qinyang didn't dodge or dodge, she just faced him with her sword. You are neither human nor demon, how about I call you a she-male? As he spoke, the temperature around the ice blue sword dropped sharply, and when the sword hit it, pieces of ice shards flew up and fell in the wind. It was really beautiful. It's a pity that Zuyun has no time to take care of such beautiful scenery. Sun Qinyang is only in the early stage of foundation building. Even though she has amazing abilities and mutated ice spirit roots, this workshop leader is weird and abnormal, so I'm afraid she won't be that easy to deal with. Throwing shopkeeper Li aside, he also took out the low-grade magic sword and shot it into the air with sword energy. Boy, you are seeking death. The owner of the shop met Sun Qinyang with a palm, and frost suddenly formed on her arm, which stopped until it reached her shoulders. However, Sun Qinyang was also knocked away by the huge force of this palm. And his other palm was aimed at Zuyun, and came from behind. Without waiting for Zuyun's sword energy to hit, he took the initiative to meet it with this palm. Although Zuyun was holding his breath just now when he was watching. But when he took action at this time, the boss saw the realm. You're only in the early stages of foundation building, but you dare to do anything in front of our master. But just as he finished speaking, the owner suddenly felt severe pain in his hand. The blood sputtered, drawing an arc in the air and then spilling out. When he looked carefully, half of his hand had been cut off. Boy, you can actually hurt my body of 10,000 monsters. The shop owner was horrified. He had been operating in the shop for many years just to build his body. But who knows, how could he be injured by Zuyun? It was clear that he was in the early stage of foundation building, and even the magic weapon in his hand was just a low-grade and high-level magic sword. How could such garbage hurt him? Sun Qinyang is indeed right. A good person must train himself to become a demon. When the blood splattered, Zuyun immediately noticed the strong demonic aura and thought that this workshop leader must have practiced some demonic technique. The body of 10,000 demons, this. At this time, shopkeeper Li suddenly shuddered. Zuyun's heart froze, and he knew that shopkeeper Li must understand what the body of 10,000 demons was, so he glanced back. Shopkeeper Li looked frightened and kept backing away, saying, "The body of 10,000 demons, is a demon clan technique passed down from Chuzhu. After being improved by Chuzhu monks, you can practice it, but... Li Dachan, you are seeking death." Seeing that the secret was about to be revealed by shopkeeper Li, the shop owner ignored the pain in his hand. His left hand shook, and the layers of frost instantly dissipated. At the same time, he suddenly swatted towards shopkeeper Li. Careful! This blow was not just a casual attack. Zuyun put two fingers together and threw an earth shield talisman in front of shopkeeper Li. Boom! As soon as the earth shield was formed, it was blown away. Shopkeeper Li was knocked out by the huge shock and smashed straight into the shop across the street. "Boy, you are seeking death." Seeing Zuyun intervene again, the owner of the workshop stared at Zuyun with eyes split open. It felt like being stared at by a few slightly intelligent monsters on that deserted island. He was horrified, and before he had time to think about it, he took the steps of the immortality secret. Before he could stand still, there was a loud noise behind him. A huge pothole appeared where he just stood. There was no sign of the boss in the sky. Zuyun was stunned for a moment, but the shop owner flew out of the hole. No, is he using himself as a magical weapon? Zuyun cursed secretly. How could he be distracted at this critical moment? He didn't care too much. With the thought, Li Huo appeared in his hands. Go! He swung it behind him and met the boss who was charging towards him with his sword. However, Li Huo was so fierce that the shop owner was also in pain. His whole body was covered with flames, burning his body. But this speed did not stop, like a fire demon rushing straight towards Zuyun. Careful! At this time, Sun Qinyang's charming voice came from not far away. As soon as the sound came, a huge ice sword condensed out of thin air, and it cut off the boss on the head. Zuyun didn't have time to look at it at all. He couldn't do anything with his only spell, the Luo curse. This. Wait, don't I have Chaos Palm? Suddenly, an idea flashed in Zuyun's mind. He didn't care that Chaos Palm would be exhausted for a while. Now this human demon was targeting him, so he had to kill him first. The ice sword hit the boss, but he only paused for a moment, and the ice sword exploded layer by layer. And Zuyun, taking advantage of this short breath, suddenly turned around. Chaos Palm. Suddenly, the grey disk in his dantian was filled with spiritual power like a reservoir collapsing, and a huge amount of water poured into his palm in an instant. The 5 colors of metal, wood, earth, water, and fire are separated between his 5 fingers. Zuyun didn't hesitate and took a photo of the terrifying boss who was covered in fire. Boom! The city was shaken and countless houses collapsed. Even the mountain top not far from Fang City had cracks. Smoke and dust rose everywhere, instantly covering Zuyun and the shop owner. And that weird 10,000 demon array, the shield where demon power circulated, also shattered. A stormy wave arose in the sea, sweeping toward Fangxi with such force. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 133. With such a huge momentum, Zuyun didn't know whether it was caused by his chaos palm or the rupture of the 10,000 demon array. At this time, he was staring at the flying fire, holding the spiritual stone he had just exchanged from shopkeeper Li in his hand, frantically absorbing the replenished spiritual power. The boss, who was covered in fire, howled gradually farther and farther until he fell on the other side of the hillside. Zuyun, are you okay? At this time, Sun Qinyang suddenly flew over and saw that her clothes were torn and blood was bleeding from the corner of her mouth. Nothing and you. Seeing her miserable state, Zuyun looked incomprehensible and shook his head gently. Now that you have established the foundation, let's leave quickly. This city is not safe. Sun Qinyang looked at the coast. The pier had been engulfed by huge waves. After the sound of waves, she could still see several black figures rushing into Xianxia along the waves. Siren. Zuyun's eyes narrowed and he secretly thought it was not good. His spiritual power has not been fully recovered, and he has almost no strength to fight anymore. Little friend Yun, let's go quickly. These sea monsters are coming, and I'm afraid the sea monks will come too. Shopkeeper Li revealed half of his body from the shop across the street and said shakily. The sea monster was driven here by Haixiu. Zuyun frowned and realized that there was no need to figure out this issue at this time. So what if it is, so what if it wasn't? He quickly asked, Shopkeeper Li, where are you? Shopkeeper Li gritted his teeth and said, while the shop owner is injured by you, I have no choice but to run away. Yunzhou is so big, there is always a place for him. After that, he rushed back to his store, randomly stuffed some pills and the like into his storage bag, then came out and said, little friend Yun, can you give me a ride? Zuyun pondered for a moment and said, I want to go to Yezhu, at most I can go with you for a while. So good. Shopkeeper Li was overjoyed and said, let's go then. Zuyun nodded slowly, took out the flying sword and stepped on it, then flew towards the air. Sun Qinyang and Shopkeeper Li followed closely behind. Look, there's Haixiu there. Suddenly, Shopkeeper Li turned around, looked back, pointed at the sea and the sky, and made a sound of horror. Zuyun turned around and saw densely packed monks in the distance, flying like a flock of seabirds. In the sea, from time to time, some sea monsters jumped out of the sea and plunged into the sea again. If you say that the sea monster has nothing to do with Haixiu, I won't believe it even to death. Shopkeeper Li said angrily. What's the use of talking about this now? Sun Qinyang said disdainfully, I already knew it. In front of Zuyun, she unconsciously restrained herself and was too embarrassed to call herself my mother. The three of them did not dare to slow down and headed north along the coast. Zuyunkai said, Sun Qinyang, have you been here in the city these days? Sun Qinyang snorted and said, at first, I thought you came to Fangxi to find the foundation establishment pill, so I waited for you to suffer, and then I came out to help. Who knows, no one here saw it, but the owner of the place knew about it. Practice strange skills secretly. Zuyun suddenly remembered that the owner of the workshop was full of demonic energy, and he also said that he had the body of 10,000 demons. Shopkeeper Li also said at that time that it was a technique passed down from Chuzhu. Shopkeeper Li, do you know that technique? He turned around and asked. I know, that skill sword goes off the peak. If you practice it well, it will enter the realm very quickly. But if you don't practice it well, it may turn into a demon. Shopkeeper Li sighed and said, it is said that this technique was taken from the demon cultivator by the master of the Chuzhu demon control sect. It's just that the demon cultivator has a completely different body from the human race, so the sect master came up with it use the method of refining the demon pill. Sun Qinyang was shocked, no wonder this shop owner will do whatever it takes to obtain the demon pill. It's true, Shopkeeper Li said, at first, I didn't understand why the shop owner wanted the demon pill, but later I saw him using the 10,000 demon array and the 10,000 demon body, and I understood. If I really let him refine it, I'm afraid this Yunzhou is his world. So strong. Hearing what Shopkeeper Li said, Zuyun also broke into a cold sweat, but felt something was wrong and said, this technique was modified by the leader of a section. Why does that master know it? Shopkeeper Li said in a sad tone, little friend Yun, almost everyone in Chuzhu knows this technique. Do you know why there are so many demons in Chuzhu but so few? But this technique has spread, and half of the demons are practicing it. People with this technique can't control the changes. What? Hearing this, Zuyun and Sun Qiniang were both shocked. Shopkeeper Li added, at that time, the demon control sect was destroyed because of this technique. Almost most of the frustrated monks in Chuzhu practiced this quick success method, and half of them turned into monsters. The ones who were most affected were the 6 major sects. After learning that the technique came from the demon control sect, the 6 major sects sent out all the powerful men in the pill formation stage to besiege the demon control sect's holy land, the demon refining tower. However, the demon control sect is not a weakling who can be manipulated to the death. Resist. Finally, I heard that the sect leader escaped with the clan's sacred treasure, and the demon control sect and the 6 major sects suffered heavy casualties. As a result, the entire Chuzhu gradually became dominated by the demon clan. Sun Qiniang was shocked when she heard this. Although her vision was broad, it was also limited. Only walking within Yunzhou, how could you ever hear about things outside Yunzhou? Zuyun was horrified. Could the skeleton in the storage bag be the master of the demon control sect? Shopkeeper Li was thinking heavily and did not notice Zuyun's reaction. He continued, these are things that are spread by people in Chuzhu. Nowadays, the 6 major sects are recuperating behind closed doors. They have not been heard of walking out of the mountains for thousands of years. Not to mention the demon cultivation sect, there is only one demon refining tower left. I don't know if there are any disciples left. Zhu Yunqiang kept this matter in his heart and changed the subject. Then Shopkeeper Li, since you are not going back to Chuzhu or Yezhu, you plan to stay in Yunzhou? Where can you go? I came to Yunzhou and have been trapped in Fang City for so many years, and my life is running out. Why not find a place to sell some elixirs and enjoy your old age? If it doesn't work, I will find a female cultivator who practices qi and see if I can give birth to a child. Here comes a kid who will help me with my old age. Shopkeeper Li looked confused and looked into the distance. Zuyun was so sad that he couldn't help but think of his father Zurong. How is Shopkeeper Li different from ordinary people at this time? Once you embark on the path of immortality, you can only pursue immortality. If you are slow to take the next step, you will also suffer the pain of approaching longevity. Shopkeeper Li, there are 2 places for me to go. One is the Xiaofang city in the north of Lingjian section. It would be good to open a shop to sell some elixirs. The other is more than 200 miles to the north. It's within the jurisdiction of Wangxian section. However, there are no one in Wangxian sect, but there are many qi refining monks practicing there. You can feel at ease in the foundation building stage. It just so happens that I have planned to go to Yezhu, so I'm on my way. Zuyun thought that he and Shopkeeper Li had also met each other, so there was nothing wrong with telling him some news he knew, not just sending him all the way to the west. I know about Lingjian sect, why not go to the market next to Lingjian sect? Shopkeeper Li said casually. Zuyun nodded and changed direction slightly. Half an hour later, the 2 of them appeared above the small market. That's it, Shopkeeper Li, I wish you everything you want. A group of 3 people floated in the air. Zuyun cupped his hands and said. Ha ha ha. Shopkeeper Li also laughed and said, little friend Yun, no, I should call you little friend Zhu. I wish Yongxian good luck. Zuyun smiled and nodded, I accept your good wishes. If I can return to Yunzhou someday, I will talk to you again. Shopkeeper Li said as he was getting down, my dear friend, I will give you one more sentence before I leave. Hearing is false, seeing is believing. But in Yezhu, remember to keep your heart, seeing may not necessarily be true. Keep my heart. Zuyun was silent in his heart, I have always kept my heart. He came back to his senses and saw that Shopkeeper Li had already fallen into the market. He smiled heartily and said loudly, I'm in the early stages of foundation building. I'm here today to sell some elixirs. It's my first time here. Buy one and get one free for all elixirs. Zuyun chuckled lightly and turned to look at Sun Qiniang. Before he could speak, he saw Sun Qiniang's face turned cold and said, "Why, you want to tell me that we will meet again in the future?" Zuyun was stunned and shook his head. Sun Qiniang was delighted and said, "Then let's go into the secret realm together." Zuyun shook his head again, but there was a little apology in his eyes. He slowly said, "Sun Qiniang, our grudges have been resolved long ago. On the island, you saved my life. But in the city, I saved your life too." "What do you mean?" Sun Qiniang's smile froze and her tone became cold again. "Sun Qiniang, we are not in the same group. I want to go to Yeazhu, but I don't want to go into the secret realm right now. Aren't you cultivating hard to pursue the great path? I have heard many rumors in the city that if there is an immortal fate in the secret realm, the cultivation level can be greatly improved. Cultivation of immortality." Zuyun murmured, looked up to the north, then came back to his senses and said, "If you don't keep your heart, what kind of immortality can you cultivate?" Sun Qiniang was stunned. She couldn't understand. Isn't the original intention of cultivating immortals just to keep getting stronger? At this time, Zuyun suddenly turned into a stream of light and flew towards the distance. The voice came from afar. "Sun Qiniang, we will never see you again. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 134. Sun Qiniang just blinked and saw Zuyun turned into a stream of light, so angry that she stomped her feet on the ice-blue sword. In the southern market, both of them almost exhausted their spiritual power. But Zuyun had spiritual stones to replenish along the way, while she only swallowed the chi-combining pill. The speed of spiritual power recovery is naturally not as fast as Zuyun. Even if she starts chasing now, I'm afraid she won't be able to catch up for long. "Humph, Zuyun, I don't believe I can't meet you in Yeazhu." Thinking of this, Sun Qiniang smiled again and fell towards the market below. Although Zuyun was flying on the sword, he was always paying attention to his back. Found that Sun Qiniang didn't chase him, and thought to himself, has she figured it out? However, this is the best. The two have different paths and cannot make plans together. She just wants to improve her realm, but her most urgent task is to find Urgu first. And before the secret realm opens. Although he was in Yunzhou, he knew the news of the secret realm. Since even this side could get the news, not to mention that people in Yeazhu would certainly flock to it. If Urgu also went there, it would be very bad if he encountered danger. As for Daegu, Zuyun was not worried. First, Daegu was very smart and more calm than him. Second, Chen Hua was directly accepted as a disciple by Jian Shiba. He must have gotten along well with Daegu for his sake. Zuyun flew all the way to the north without stopping. He flew all the way to the Hongduan Mountains and then found an inconspicuous valley to land. After entering the Daegu glass mirror, he planned to spend some time to refine some pills and draw some talismans in case of emergency. With his realm, he could walk around Yunzhou at will. But if he arrived in Yeazhu, Zuyun gathered his spirit and began to draw talismans on the stone table. "After the painting is almost done, I will go to make the elixir. I don't know what happened to the elixir fire that was sleeping under the furnace." At this time, the southern market was in ruins. Countless sea monsters rushed to the shore in the sea, destroying the houses wantonly. Some cheerifying monks who didn't have time to escape were torn into pieces early, and no bones were left. In the sky, several foundation building monks floated on various magical instruments, looking down coldly. Alliance leader, this market is like a pile of loose sand. I'm afraid that the monk from Chuzhu is not here anymore. A monk in the middle stage of foundation building said to someone beside him. Not necessarily. Before I came here, I heard a lot of noise here. I guess the owner of the shop was exposed and was killed by the monks of Yunzhou. Before these sea monsters came ashore, I also saw that some shops had been damaged. The leader looked up into the distance, then retracted his gaze and said, "Drive these sea monsters back to the sea. They are of no use." The subordinate listened to the order and called a few people. After giving detailed instructions, several female cultivators landed in an open area and took out their own life instruments. It turned out to be musical instruments such as qin, xiao, dizi, and se. The strange music sounded, and these sea monsters slowly retreated into the sea tide. After a stick of incense, there was no more demonic aura in the market. The monks then fell from the sky one by one. The leader said, "Those monks from the market who thought they were going to kill us on the island have come back empty-handed. I'm afraid they will come back here again. Let's hide and wait. After we kill them all, we will have a firm foothold in Yunzhou." "Leader, will you not go back to the sea?" another person asked beside him. "Yunzhou is barren, but there are many resources in the sea, so we must not give up. But it's safer on land than in the sea. We must first eliminate the dissidents, and then seek other things. At night, let the cave masters of the other 35 caves come to me." "Yes, leader." The foundation building stage monks dispersed, and took their own refining stage subordinates to search in the damaged market separately. The sea cultivators have few pills and medicines, so they naturally don't miss such a good opportunity. A group of people searched back and forth in the broken walls, and they also gained a lot. However, he also encountered many shop owners who had no time to escape and were still breathing. He asked a few questions and then killed them directly. The bloody smell spread until sunset. Night fell and the full moon rose. In the abbot's mansion, 36 foundation building period people were in a hall. Among so many people, the weakest one was at the middle stage of foundation building or above. And the leader was at the peak of the late stage of foundation building. "Everyone, we have been fighting in the sea for generations, and this alliance has finally taken a step forward." He looked around, and everyone's faces were full of joy. "But I have said it before. We don't know what the inland of Yunzhou is like. But there are also occasional words saying that we sea cultivators are barbarians. So, we need to keep a low profile for now. We will take over this market, and each of the 36 caves will occupy one side. On the one hand, we can do some business to earn spiritual stones, and on the other hand, we can get some information from the inland cultivators who come here. I wonder what you think." "Leader," at this time, a female cultivator smiled charmingly and stood up and said, "Our High Le sect will agree with what the sect master said, but I don't know if it can be related to our cultivation method." "Leader of High Le, your business can only be open to inland cultivators, otherwise, the other sect masters may not agree." The leader laughed, but there was a flash of contempt in his eyes. "Why don't you agree?" Leader of High Le was puzzled. "Ha ha ha," a strong male cultivator with a naked upper body, holding a huge axe, stood up and laughed loudly. "Shiva, in the past, in the sea, the disciples fought in the sea day and night, living a life of today and not tomorrow, and it was fine to find your highly sect to have fun. But now, we are developing on land, less killing, and we can't give all the spiritual power that we have cultivated with great difficulty to the female disciples of your sect." The leader of Highly sect, who was called Shiva, glared at the big man angrily, turned to look at the leader and said, "My Highly sect has always been voluntary, and has never had any unpleasantness with any sect in the 36 cave heavens. Especially the rough men like the Julie sect, you come the most, but today you are the most ruthless." "Shibala, this matter was discussed by the other sect leaders. It's useless for you to talk to me, you have to convince them." The leader did not say anything final, but turned his head and swept his eyes over the sect leaders. Shibola's face suddenly darkened, because she had never known about this. In other words, the 35 Cave Heaven sects avoided her and talked about her sex affairs? If that's the case, then I have nothing to say, Shibola. My High Le sect will withdraw from this alliance. As soon as this was said, the others were all surprised. The leader of the alliance said, if you withdraw, this market will have nothing to do with you in the future. Isn't this exactly what you want to see? Shibola sneered, I don't want to go back to my High Le sect's cave heaven. Yunzhou is so big, I don't believe there is no place for me. After saying that, she suddenly laughed charmingly again. Since I have withdrawn from the alliance, you can't blame us if the male cultivators of your sects ask our disciples to give spiritual power in the future. As soon as the voice fell, Shibola's figure was like a water snake, twisting her waist and walking out of the hall. As soon as she walked out of the door, she took out a jade flute and put it to her mouth to play it. Not long after, some shadows appeared from some intact houses in the market. When they came to her, they all had flushed faces and disheveled clothes. Some of them even tied their skirts while flying. Shivrat ignored them. When more than 100 people stood in front of her, she smiled and said, this sect master has withdrawn from the alliance. If you want to go with me, leave immediately. If you want to stay, this sect master will never force you. A charming female cultivator said in a delicate voice, where the sect master's sister goes, the sisters will go. Okay. Shivrat's face was charming, and she said, I think you all want to go ashore, then this sect master will take you to the inland. Let's go. Yes, sect master's sister. The female cultivators bowed slightly, and followed Shivrat in light steps, walking towards the inland direction. They were smiling on their faces, not afraid of any danger they would encounter. Yunzhou was at most in the foundation building stage, and they firmly believed that no one could escape their bodies. They can survive in such a difficult place as the sea, let alone Yunzhou. When the sun rose, they found a market. There were not many people, but it was quite lively. And most of the cultivators were in the qi refining stage. Shivra smiled lightly and said, this place is good, we will open a shop here to welcome customers. Yes, sister sect master. The female cultivators said in unison, and the voices spread into the market, which immediately attracted the cultivators inside to look out, and they were all amazed on the spot. At the door of a wooden house at the foot of the mountain, shopkeeper Li frowned slightly and murmured, Hehuan sect. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 135. Ye is who? It has been less than half a year since the secret realm opened. Zilang Peak has become a place where countless monks rush to go. This is a grand event that has never happened in the first two openings. Before that, the secret realm was controlled by the two sects of Haori sect and Wanjian Mountain. With their strong strength, they almost regarded the secret realm as their own back garden. Because the secret realm cannot bear too many people, the number of people is controlled. There are 200 people from each of the two sects, 100 people in the foundation building stage and 100 people in the qi refining stage. All sects except them can only admit a total of 200 people, and they need to pay a lot of spiritual stones. And if casual cultivators want to enter, they have to pay twice as many spiritual stones. It can be seen that no matter where they are, the survival of casual cultivators is extremely difficult. But a year ago, Heizong suddenly turned against Wanji Unshan and started fighting in Yeazhu. Today you kill our disciples, and tomorrow I will smash your shop. For a time, the entire Yeazhu was in chaos. Because of this, those small sects and casual cultivators realized that this was a good opportunity to enter the secret realm. When the secret realm was opened, both sects would originally send 5 people in the Danja stage to guard the entrance. This is an existence that no small sect can match. So everything has been fine. It can only be said that the powerful ones from Haori sect and Wanjian Mountain are stronger. The rest of the people dare to be angry but dare not speak out. But now that Zhuhao Mountain and Wanjian Mountain have been disrupted, how can anyone still stay here during the Dan formation period? This is your chance. With Zilang Peak as the center, within a radius of 50 miles. Several small towns were overcrowded. A chilling feeling permeated the air. There is a strong momentum that the building is full of rain. But everyone resisted and did not make a move, for fear that if they moved, they would lose the opportunity to enter the secret realm. Even if he met the enemy who killed his father or took away his wife, he would just pass by him like a stranger. And at this time, on Yaloo Mountain, there were also two figures walking down the slope. Argo, remember to follow me, remember. Meng Wei said lightly. At this time, her appearance seemed to have changed. This is what she has been preparing for more than a year. I'm not stupid. Even though I'm at the 8th level of chi refining, I can only follow you. Ergo said expressionlessly. Giggle. Meng Wei laughed like a silver bell and said, why, are you angry with me, or are you angry that Zuyun didn't come to you? I'm not angry with anyone. Ergo's pigtails no longer dangled randomly at the back of his head, but were coiled in the center of his head. He raised his head and looked into the distance and said, I'm just angry at myself, I'm so stupid. Meng Wei put away his smile and said, so you must go to the secret realm. The Yaloo sex techniques have always been practiced by women. I don't know that men will encounter bottlenecks after practicing. Of course I know it. When I met Big Dog a year ago, he was already at the 12th level of chi refining. Xiaozhu doesn't know what his level is, but he must be more than the 8th level of chi refining. Ergo shook his head. For more than a year, he was either practicing or mining. Meng Wei was not practicing and had been consulting the sex ancient books. At first, she felt that her realm was not yet completely stable, and if she rashly made a new breakthrough to the core formation stage, accidents would inevitably happen. Secondly, she felt a little sorry for Ergu and wanted to find out what the problem was. As a result, she found a possibility. As long as you find a spiritual medicine called Yaloo Cao and take it, the disciples who practice this technique can directly break through the three minor realms. Ergu has been stuck at the 8th level of chi refining, whether it is a bottleneck or something. Meng Wei thought it didn't matter if he gave it a try. And just as Wang Jianshan and He Rizong were having a good fight, they had the opportunity to sneak into the secret realm. Big Dog. A glint flashed in Meng Wei's eyes, and suddenly a thought came to his mind. Could it be that the reason Ergu didn't break through was due to a knot in his heart? And this knot is caused by the big dog's injury? If you don't find the Yaloo grass, catch the big dog and let the second dog know that he is okay, maybe it will have an effect. In fact, Meng Wei knew very well that he did not kill him at that time. Of course it's not that she won't kill him, but she thinks that the big dog, who is at the 12th level of chi refining, can't pose any threat to her. Unexpectedly, after being injured, I realized that it was a big dog. Thinking of Zuyun's relationship, she stopped taking action and even sent him back with Ergu. She herself didn't know why she suddenly showed mercy to the people of Wanjian Mountain. Is it really related to Zuyun? Don't think too much. We have only one purpose in going to the secret realm, which is to find the Yaloo grass. Let others grab the rest of the elixir. Meng Wei recovered his thoughts and gave an order. Ergu didn't say anything, but nodded. Other side. Zuyunke came out of the mirror. His spiritual power became more pure, and he also refined a lot of elixirs. But I found that a lot of time had passed, and I couldn't help but feel anxious. At this moment, he was holding the spirit stone in his hand and flying with all his strength on the sword. He is not interested in secret realms. He just wants to go to Yaloo Mountain to find Meng Wei and Ergu before making plans before the secret realm opens. However, just as they flew over the Hongduan Mountains, before they could feel the rich spiritual energy of Yezu, there was a sound of fighting. He was startled, and he didn't want to get into trouble, so he immediately dropped towards the mountainside, planning to bypass this place. Unexpectedly, a person not far away suddenly shouted, "There is a sword man there, kill him." As soon as he finished speaking, several foundation building monks rushed towards him with light wheels under their feet. Feeling such fluctuations in spiritual power, Zuyun was extremely shocked. The middle stage of foundation building. Court death. As soon as Zuyun landed on the ground, there was a burst of shouting behind him. Zuyun's spiritual consciousness spread out, and he quickly noticed two powerful nimbus coming towards him. What kind of magic is this, so mysterious? Zuyun was surprised in his heart, and quickly moved towards the distance with his feet using the immortality technique. He did have a chance to counter-attack the foundation building stage who was at the forefront, but he knew that once he took action, let alone whether he would be trapped here, even if he could escape, it was reasonable to be afraid, but he couldn't tell. Just now I heard them calling me Sword Man, and they must have thought that I was from Wanjian Mountain. Strange, isn't Wanjianshan one of the most powerful sects in Yezu? Zuyun was puzzled, but his feet kept moving. Explosions continued to sound behind him, rocks exploded, and spiritual power surged. He did not dare to slow down the next step. Damn it, this swordsman is using the confused sword step. I think it's the sword step. No matter what step he takes, everyone in Wanjian Mountain should die. Behind him, shouts kept coming, and Zuyun wanted to turn around and say, "This is a mortal skill." Unfortunately, he knew very well that no one would believe it. Zuyun ran away and took away several foundation building stages. But in mid-air, those Wanjian Mountain disciples who were fighting fiercely with the Haori sect monks slowly gained the upper hand. "Senior Brother Chen, is that our sect?" A disciple used the technique of 4 tails of gold to pick away an incoming light wheel with his sword, and when he got a little space, he yelled at the person next to him. "It's a bit far, I don't know. But he has attracted a few idiots. I will work harder to kill a few of them, and then I will rush to rescue him." The sword cultivator, who was called Senior Brother Chen, bit the tip of his tongue as he spoke and spat out a mouthful of blood on the natal magic sword in his hand. The power suddenly increased. With several consecutive sword strikes, he cut the incoming nimbus in half. There was no chance of explosion at all. Seeing this, the other sword cultivators rushed forward one after another, using various sword moves in an endless stream. The Haerizong monks who had to stay here were retreating steadily. "Come on, these swordsmen are crazy, they are all drained of blood." The leading Haerizong monk suddenly felt something bad. They were already missing a few people, but now they were at a disadvantage. If they didn't leave, it would be too late. Just like this, the life and death battle just a moment ago broke up due to Zuyun's sudden appearance. At the same time, Zuyun ran all the way into a small town built on the mountain. "Senior Brother Zhao, do you want to pursue me or not?" A group of monks stopped and someone asked. "We must chase him. But this town is under the jurisdiction of Zhuyang Gate. If Zhuyang Master is in the late stage of pill formation, if he kills a few of us, I'm afraid his death will be in vain." Senior Brother Zhao means. The other monks were puzzled. "Just put away the halo. As long as we don't destroy it at will, the people from Zhuyang sect will betray our Haori sect's face. When we find the sword man, it won't be too late to attack again." Senior Brother Zhao thought for a moment and took the lead in dispersing the light wheel, and everyone walked in. Zuyun hid in a corner and watched several people approaching from a distance without daring to express his anger. He didn't dare to act rashly. Just because as soon as he entered this small town, he immediately felt a terrifying spiritual consciousness sweeping over him. But this spiritual consciousness did not stay on him, which made him feel relieved. At the same time, Zhuyang Town Center. On the top of a pavilion, an old man closed his eyes and suddenly said, "There is a handsome young man over there. He looks to be in his 20s. Go and have a look. If he is suitable, we can get married today." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 136. Grandpa, how can I know how to read yin and yang music like you? Behind the old man, a young girl was very shy. Not everyone can be favored by me, Master Zhu Yang. The old man then opened his eyes and said something proudly, and then said kindly, "That young man, at such an age and in the early stage of foundation building, I'm afraid he has good talent, and he won't be an embarrassment to Grandpa." "Grandfather," the girl said coquettishly, "people with good talents belong to sects, and you don't like marrying with other sections, aren't you afraid of trouble?" Master Zhu Yang stretched out his hand to stroke his beard and said with a smile, "This young man was chased by the Haori sect, but he is not from Wanjian Mountain. As long as it is not for these two major sects, your grandfather and I will be in the entire Yaezhu, who can no face." "Hey, Grandpa, can you see this?" The girl stepped forward and leaned against the window to look out. She had a panoramic view of the entire town, and naturally she also saw the motionless Zuyun. It's just that she was far away, so she couldn't see the handsomeness that Master Zhu Yang said. "Grandpa will not misjudge the person. Go ahead and bring him to Zhu Yangman. Grandpa is here, prepare some greeting gifts for him." After saying that, Master Zhu Yang stood up, opened a side door, and ignored the girl. "Why don't I stay here to serve you? You insist on marrying me off. It's so annoying." The girl stamped her foot, then spit out a small bead from her mouth. When she saw her delicate body turning around, she stepped on the bead. In the blink of an eye, the bead became as big as a human head, carrying the girl straight down, and landed on the ground in a moment. At this time, a member of the Heizong said, "Senior Brother Zhao, that boy is also very smart and knows that spiritual consciousness is not allowed in Zhuyang Town. We are like blind people trying to find the way and can't find the direction. From what I can see, he must not have been far away. He must have taken advantage of me to wade deeper into the town before looking for an opportunity to escape." Senior Brother Zhao is rich in experience and his eyes are constantly scanning everywhere. Senior Brother Zhao makes sense. I'll be searching everywhere. Remember to call first when you encounter an enemy. The sword cultivator is extremely explosive, so wait until we take action together. Everyone was about to leave, but Senior Brother Zhao suddenly raised his hand and pointed to a corner. "It's obviously a figure. It hasn't moved. I'm afraid it's the sword man." Senior Brother Zhao glanced at him and said softly, "Go over and have a look." Everyone immediately lowered their pace, first walked a few steps forward along the path, and then quietly walked around the corner. Zuyun had been paying attention to the actions of these people, but he could not hear what these people said. "I just heard faintly that it was a sword cultivator or something." After seeing them leave, he sighed secretly, finally confirming that he was mistaken for Wang Jianshan. It seems that swords are not so easy to get in Yaezhu. Thinking of this, Zuyun quietly put away his sword. But he never thought that at this moment, several figures suddenly appeared in front of him. "Hey, I didn't expect to be hiding here. You should die." Senior Brother Zhao laughed ferociously and suddenly slapped Zuyun with his palm. Zuyun was shocked, and quickly moved to the side, shouting, "Fellow Taoists, I am not from Wanjian Mountain. Go and talk below. Who else dares to use swords in Yaezhu now besides you swordsmen from Wanjian Mountain?" Another monk slapped Zuyun with a ferocious smile. Zuyun was attacked from both sides, but he was victorious because of his mysterious movement skills. He had practiced this longevity technique to the extreme, and with the help of spiritual power, it turned out to be extremely useful. In order to avoid causing misunderstandings with Zhu Yang clan, He Rizong and others also restrained some strength and gave Zhu Yun a chance to react. Zhu Yun jumped onto the street with 3 clicks. He didn't understand any rules, so his spiritual power surged and he ran towards the town. For a moment, the monks walking back and forth in the town were frightened. Damn, chase. Senior brother Zhao was extremely shocked and angry. With so many people joining forces, he actually allowed this kid to take advantage of every opportunity and run out of the encirclement. At that moment, he shouted lowly and used his spiritual power to chase Zhu Yun. When the other monks saw this, they followed closely behind. Don't follow me, separate. I don't believe that kid dares to break into Zhuyang Tower. Senior brother Zhao has been to Zhuyang Tower a few years ago. This is the center of Zhuyang Gate and ordinary people are not allowed to approach it. He didn't know that Zhu Yun came from Yunzhou and knew only one sect in Yezhou, Wanjian Mountain. Not to mention the rules of Zhuyangmen. There was no one to stop him at this time. Why didn't he rush forward with all his strength? Hey, you can't run away anymore. At this time, there was a sudden shout in front of him, and Zhu Yun was suddenly startled. He saw a girl with a pretty face and a red bead, looking at him steadily and saying, "Fairy, are you talking to me?" Zhu Yun asked quickly when he knew that the monk behind him had been thrown away for a while. "Of course I'm talking to you, there's no one else here. If you break into Zhuyang's downstairs, my grandpa will kill you," the girl said softly. "Some people are chasing me after thinking that I am Wanjian Mountain Sword Correction. If your grandfather doesn't kill me, they will kill me too." Zhu Yun smiled bitterly. The girl was surprised. "Are you really not a sword cultivator from Wanjian Mountain?" Zhu Yun asked back, "Tell me, how do I look like me? Should I change it?" Pook, the girl was immediately amused by Zhu Yun's words. She is the only granddaughter of Master Zhu Yang, and no one has ever dared to talk to her like this. "It's okay, stop, I'll protect you." As soon as he finished speaking, several Haori sect disciples surrounded him from 3 directions. Zhu Yun tensed up when he heard the girl say, "I am Mu Kingzin. If you touch him, Grandpa will be very angry and the consequences will be serious." "It turns out to be Fairy Mu," senior brother Zhao said in a deep voice. "I dare to ask, does Master Zhu Yang know that our Haori sect and Wanjian Mountain will fight to the death?" Mu Kingzin smiled and said, "My grandfather said that he is not from Wanjianshan. You are wrong." "No." All the disciples of the Haori sect looked at each other. Senior brother Zhao said in confusion, "Xianxia is unaware of something. We were fighting fiercely with the people from Wanjian Mountain when we saw him sneaking out from the Hongduan Mountains with his sword. If he didn't want to sneak up on me, how could he come out from there?" Zhu Yun quickly said, "Fellow Taoists, I am really not a disciple of Wanjian Mountain. If so, I will definitely fight back when you pursue me. How can I let you chase me all the way here?" "Humph, you were alone, and you ran away after we found out." Zhu Yun cried out that he was wronged and said, "How can I prove that I am not a disciple of Wanjian Mountain?" Although he didn't know the situation, he also knew that Wanjianshan was being chased and killed, and he was afraid that there would be chaos in Yezhou. Could it be that Mengwei recovered his cultivation level in the Danji stage and went on a killing spree? Not right either. This Heizong looks very sanctimonious in appearance, and when he uses the light wheel, his spiritual power fluctuates without any abnormality. In desperation, he asks such a question. Wanjianshan are all hypocrites. There is no need to talk to yourself. If you destroy your flying sword, we will think that you are not from Wanjianshan. How about that?" Senior brother Zhao squinted his eyes and immediately came up with a solution. Zhu Yun smiled bitterly in his heart. If he didn't want to cause trouble, just because these people were so aggressive, he would have to kill two of them to vent his anger. However, he had no intention of using the sword in the first place, and the sword was just a low-grade magic weapon, which was not very useful to him. If trouble can be solved, it is ruined. Just when he was about to take out the sword, Mu Qingxin stopped him and said, "Fellow Taoists, this is Zhuyang town. My grandfather said that he is not from Wanjian Mountain. The implication is that these people are biting their noses." Zuyun Zimuking means well, but he doesn't want to have anything to do with Zhuyang Gate. He just wants to solve the trouble as soon as possible and then go to Yaluo Mountain. Just take the sword out of the storage bag. Watch it. He held the sword in one hand, and with the other hand he gathered a spiritual power and slapped it towards the sword. Crack. A crack immediately appeared on the sword. As for Zuyun, nothing happened at all. Senior brother Zhao narrowed his eyes and said, "You are in the foundation building stage and you use a low-grade magic sword as your natal magic weapon? I don't believe it." Suddenly, Zuyun's face turned cold, and he said in a deep voice, "Do you, Haori sect, really think that I, a casual cultivator, are afraid of you?" Although this sword was useless to Zuyun, it was still left to him by Sun Suanhua. When I was able to take a picture of a crack, I actually thought that I could repair it and not use it again. But after he did this, these people were still aggressive. Clay figurines also have a certain amount of anger. Ha ha ha, senior brother Zhao couldn't help laughing and said, "Even if you are from Wanjian Mountain, I am not afraid of you." "Why would you be afraid of you as a casual cultivator? Don't say I won't give you a chance. Either throw the storage bag over to I'll check it out, or don't blame our Haerizong, you're welcome. I'm not afraid of rogue cultivators. I wonder if you Haerizong ants are afraid of me." Suddenly, a majestic voice sounded, and terrifying pressure fell from the sky, instantly covering the Haerizong. There was only a splash, and several monks fell to their knees on the ground. Genren Zhuyang, cold sweat broke out on brother Zhao's forehead at some point and dripped down. "There's talk, there's bullshit." An old man slowly descended out of thin air, wearing a Taoist robe and possessing the spirit of an immortal. But his eyes were full of murderous intent. "We are from the Haori sect. Do you want to stand up for the people from Wanjian Mountain?" Senior brother Zhao gritted his teeth and said this. Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, senior brother Zhao's head exploded into a ball of blood in an instant. "Master Zhuyang's voice sounded faintly just now. Go back and tell Li Chengan that you are disrespectful to my grandson-in-law. I will only kill one person. If he wants to take revenge, I, Master Zhuyang, will wait for him here." In an instant, the pressure suddenly disappeared, and several Haori sect disciples fled in panic. Zuyun, on the other hand, stood stunned on the spot. "Grandson-in-law? Why don't I know anything? I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 137. Senior, is there any misunderstanding? Zuyun felt a sense of familiarity from the pressure just now, and knew that this was the person whose spiritual consciousness had swept over him before. He asked politely, biting the bullet. "There is no misunderstanding. From today on, you are the grandson-in-law of my master Zhuyang. During this period, practice hard and tell my granddaughter what you want. The secret realm will be opened in half a year. You can protect her and come back safely before we get married." Master Zhuyang seemed to be talking about an extremely ordinary thing, but Zuyun was nervous. A period of forming an elixir, forcibly seizing him as a son-in-law. Are all people in Yaezhu so domineering? He turned his head slightly and looked at Mu Qingxin, who was only a few steps away in front of him. He saw her shyly lowering her head and fidgeting with the corners of her clothes. The expression on her face was not visible at all. Zuyun said in a deep voice, "Senior, this boy is of little strength and has poor talent. He is not worthy of being as stunning as Fairy Mew. Please. Quack. Before he finished speaking, Master Zhu Yang interrupted his words with an angry shout, and at the same time, a terrifying pressure swept towards him. Zhu Yun felt as if he was being sucked into the void, powerless to do anything, and as if he would be annihilated into powder by such pressure at any time. Grandfather! Just when Zhu Yun thought he was about to die, Mu Qingxin suddenly let out a sweet cry. The pressure dissipated instantly, and he found that his clothes were already soaked. Granddaughter, this boy is your perfect match, don't say anything anymore. If you don't listen to Grandpa, go to Zhuyang Pavilion to think about it. If you can't figure it out, don't come out again in this life. Master Zhuyang was clearly speaking to Mu Qingxin, but Zhu Yun was secretly frightened when he heard it. This is too ruthless. Mu Qingxin raised her head and said with some trepidation, Grandpa, this is the first time that my granddaughter met him. He doesn't know what her granddaughter likes, and she doesn't know his last name, at least let her get acquainted with him. Fan. Hearing this, Master Zhu Yang stroked his beard and laughed loudly, that's right, it was Grandpa who was abrupt. In this way, you guys can get to know each other well in Zhuyang Tower. After saying that, he waved his sleeve away, and the two of them were lifted up by Zhuyang Zhenren in the void. Before Zhu Yun felt the wind, he had already stepped onto the solid wooden board. He took a closer look and found that he was in a tall building. Looking out the window again, the whole town is in full view. Looking further away, you can still see the disciples of the Haori sect, flying quickly on light wheels. I'm not ready for the meeting ceremony yet. You guys should get familiar with it. I'll come back later. Saying that, Master Zhu Yang smiled again and walked into the side door of the floor. The moment he opened the door, Zhu Yun smelled a smell of fireworks. Alchemy. Tell, young master, how do you call me? At this time, Mu Qingxin asked softly. Yun, Yunzu. Zhu Yun quickly came to his senses, only to see that Mu Qingxin was only one step away from him, and a vague fragrance came through his nose. Master Yun, my grandfather. There were only two of them in the whole room, and Mu Qingxin blushed so hard that she couldn't say anything. Zhu Yun smiled bitterly and said, Fairy Mew, I have something urgent to do. Can you please have a good talk with me, senior? Mu Qingxin sighed and said rather helplessly, Master Yun, I also feel that this is very inappropriate, but Grandpa has always been used to being domineering, and I can't help it. You and I are just acquainted for the first time. To be honest, I don't owe you or senior any favors. If you keep me like this, you will get my person, so what? Zhu Yun walked towards the window, wanting to lean on it, and then put his head out the window to take a few good breaths. He felt a little depressed in the room. But before his head stretched out, it seemed as if he had hit something hard. Without noticing, his eyes were filled with stars. Pook. Mu Qingxin couldn't help laughing again, and then she quickly stepped forward and said, I'm sorry, Master, this Zhuyang Tower is protected by a formation, I forgot to tell you. Zhu Yun came back to his senses and smiled bitterly, look, I can't even take a breath here. What's the difference between this and imprisoning me? As soon as I finished speaking, I felt a chill in my heart. Can the formation be broken? If it breaks, I just have to fight for the most time to have a cup of tea, and then find a corner to hide in the Diwu glass mirror. As soon as the wind blows over, you can run away. As soon as his mind came to life, Zhu Yun began to think about the feasibility of this method. Master Zhu Yang, there is no way he can compete with him. The gap in realm is really too big. Master Yun? Master Yun. Seeing Zhu Yun's eyes suddenly lost focus, Mu Qingxin hurriedly shouted softly. In her haste, she even forgot that Zhu Yun was also a Foundation establishment monk, so how could he be injured by this collision? Ah, Zhu Yun quickly came back to his senses, smiled sheepishly, and said, "Fairy Mew, what kind of formation is this, so mysterious? You can't see or touch it, so you're not afraid of some birds and beasts flying over? Hit it?" "Young Master Yun's words are really interesting," Mu Kingzin said with a smile. "This is the 9 turns and 9 suns formation, and our 9 suns town is built on the Hongduan mountains, so ordinary birds and beasts will not fly into our building. 9 turns to 9 suns." When Zhu Yun first heard about Zhuyang Gate, he felt a little familiar. But when I heard these 4 words, I couldn't help but be shocked. Among the formations that Sun Suanhua taught him, the last formation was the 9 turns and 9 suns formation. According to Sun Suanhua, this formation is extremely complicated, and if it is slightly changed, the effect will be completely different. There are 99 and 81 combinations. What Zhu Yun has learned the most in the mirror over the years is the 9 transformations 9 suns formation. But he has never used it. At first, he did not have enough spirit stones, and secondly, the space in the mirror was a little small, which made it inconvenient for him to use it. Later, he exchanged thousands of spirit stones from shopkeeper Li, and then he played with it a few times in proportion. But he never really made the formation take shape. Didn't Sun Suanhua say that this formation was his original creation? How come the 9 Sun section also knows it? He suppressed his excitement and asked tentatively, "Fairy Mew, what kind of formation is this 9 transformations 9 suns formation? Why have I never heard of it? I don't know this formation either. I just heard from my grandfather that he accidentally got a formation diagram from a place 100 years ago. After modifying it, he found that it was extremely useful. So he founded a sect and established the 9 Suns sect here. In this building, except for my grandfather who can enter and exit freely, only I can enter and exit with my life magic weapon. The rest of the people must be controlled by my grandfather to enter and exit." Mu Kingzin is also smart. Knowing that Zhu Yun is trying to find out about the formation, he simply told him everything he knew so that he would give up. No one has ever broken this formation. It is precisely because of this that my grandfather devoted himself to cultivation and broke through to the late stage of Jindan in one fell swoop, so that he could have some face in front of Wanjian Mountain and Haori sect. Zhu Yun was extremely surprised. This formation was obtained 100 years ago, and Sun Suanhua escaped from Yazhu to Yunzhou 100 years ago. If nothing unexpected happened, the formation diagram must have been lost at that time, and let Zhu Yang Genren picked it up. I didn't expect Zhu Yangman to come for this. Zhu Yun suppressed all these thoughts in his heart, deliberately showing surprise. At this time, the side door opened, and Zhu Yang Genren came out with a smile and fireworks. In his hand, there was also a bottle of pills. "Boy, I am not an unreasonable person. Since you are married into the family, I will give you this gift. This pill is the Qi condensation pill that I have worked hard to refine. It is very good for your foundation building period. You can take this pill to practice during this period. When the time comes, my granddaughter will rely on your protection in the secret realm." Zhu Yun only hoped to stabilize Zhu Yang Genren at this time, and took it obediently. He also thanked him repeatedly, and there was another idea in his mind. This Zhu Yang Genren also likes to refine pills. I wonder if I can let him let me go through the pills? But this skill was passed down by Sun Suanhua. I don't know if it is considered breaking the rules. After thinking about it, Zhu Yun still decided to wait and see, and start with the formation first. "Okay, I'll go to the next town to see if there are any materials for the body shaping pill. You stay here for 3 days at the earliest and 5 days at the latest." After saying that, True Man Zhu Yang jumped out of the window, and in the blink of an eye, he turned into a stream of light and rushed out of Zhuyang town. Zhu Yun then took out the Qi condensation pill, took a look, and frowned slightly. He also had the Qi condensation pill, which was a must-have pill for the foundation building period. but no matter whether he looked at the color or the shape of the pill, he didn't like it. He subconsciously put the pill under his nose, intending to smell the fragrance of the medicine. Who knew that Mu Kingzin suddenly slapped over with a palm and slapped the pill away. Zuyun was completely puzzled, but saw Mu Kingzin anxiously said, "This pill can't be eaten." Important notice, due to force majeure, this book will be suspended for the next few days. The author is currently undergoing surgery in the hospital due to a traffic accident. The injuries to his left hand and right arm are quite serious, and it is not clear when he will recover. I implore everyone to put the book on the bookshelf for the time being and not delete it. This book is the author's hard work. Before entering the operating room, the author was still thinking about the readers of this book and asked me to issue this notice. Thank you for your understanding and support, and I wish the author's surgery goes well. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 138. Zuyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and said, "Fairy Mu, I just smelled the fragrance of this medicine. Your reaction was too much. Could it be that this is some kind of poisonous elixir?" Yeah, Mu Kingzin's pretty face turned red, a flash of unnaturalness flashed through her face, and she said, "Young Master Yun doesn't know something. Grandpa has been obsessed with refining qi condensing pills recently and has eaten up many people's stomachs. I'm afraid he might have another problem. What kind of strange elixir was added to it?" Mr. Yun treated it as an ordinary qi condensing pill again. Zuyun was stunned, and then said with a strange expression, "Senior Zhu, has this just begun to learn how to refine pills?" Including the time spent in the Dewu glazed mirror, it can be said that he has been refining the elixir for decades. In terms of experience, he is much higher than ordinary alchemists. The only flaw is that he has practiced a lot of primary elixirs, but despite this, he also knows that a certain elixir recipe cannot be changed at will. Moreover, Sun Suanhua once told him that the improvement of every elixir requires thousands of failures. Therefore, the higher the level of the elixir, the more uncontrollable changes it will have. In Zuyun Daoli Yulijing's alchemy room, all the alchemy drawers in the penultimate row have been opened. But this is only an intermediate formula for primary elixirs. By comparing it with the body-shaping pill, he was absolutely sure that the difference between the qi condensing pill and the intermediate qi condensing pill was actually not very big. The difference is that the Heki pill restores spiritual power faster, while the qi condensation pill restores more spiritual power. Yes. Mu Kingzin nodded, feeling helpless. "I still want to smell the fragrance of this elixir, please don't hit me again." Zuyun blinked and smiled, while Mu Kingzin blushed again, took a few steps forward, picked up the elixir and handed it over. "Master Yun, do you also know the art of alchemy?" After blushing, Mu Kingzin's eyes were full of curiosity. Zuyun didn't want to admit it at all now. Before he determined whether to use alchemy to arouse the interest of Master Zhu, he couldn't reveal any clues. Judging from the information received so far, Master Zhu is obsessed with alchemy. His experience in alchemy will be a double-edged sword. Maybe he will become a lifelong friend of Master Zhu, but more likely he will fall into a situation of no life or death. Because Genren Zhu is in his unrivaled elixir formation stage now, Zuyun didn't dare to bet. Once he lost the bet, he would be doomed. No, I've just never taken qi condensing pill." Seeing Zuyun shaking his head in denial, Mu Qing was a little curious. This qi condensing pill was not a good thing. It was a pill that could be found everywhere in Yeazhu. How could he not have taken it before? Little did he know that it was precisely because of such questions that Mu Kingzin's thoughts were led astray. "Master Yun, I'm afraid you are joking. Although this qi condensation pill is an intermediate pill, you are already a monk in the foundation establishment stage, so you should be able to buy it in the market, right?" Fairy Mu doesn't know something, Zuyun sighed deliberately and said, I am a monk from Yunzhou. I just crossed the Hongduan Mountains to Diazhu today. I finally found the right direction before I came out of the mountains and saw people from Wanjian Mountain and the Haori sect were fighting. When I first arrived, I thought that doing more would be better than doing less, so I wanted to take a detour. Unexpectedly, someone from the Haori sect recognized me as a disciple of Wanjian Mountain and chased me all the way. Kill here. Ah, Mu Kingzin was surprised. You came from Yunzhou. Zuyun showed a helpless expression and nodded. Mu Kingzin suddenly realized, no wonder you put your nose to the tip of your nose to smell the scent of the medicine when you saw the Qi Ning Den. It turns out you are from Yunzhou. I heard my grandfather say that the monks in Yunzhou are very poor. If not, my grandfather's Zhuyang Gate is no longer built against the Hongduan Mountains, it has been moved to Yunzhou long ago. As she spoke, she suddenly felt something was wrong, because wasn't the Zuyun in front of her a monk from Yunzhou? Master Yun, this. Zuyun didn't care, he waved his hand casually and said, it doesn't matter, Fairy Mu has never been to Yunzhou, and she is right. If Yunzhou was not barren, I would not be able to come to Yazhu. Zuyun followed Mu Kingzin's words and said a few more words. Seeing that her attention was not on alchemy at all, he quickly said, can Fairy Mu take me to visit the Zhuyang Tower? Okay, but you have to follow me closely. If you go wrong, you will be imprisoned in some rooms, and I won't be able to rescue you. Hearing this, Zuyunmalan remembered the time when Sun Suanhua took him out of the fog formation. Although the tone was different, the scene at this time was so similar. Mu Kingzin has been staying in Zhuyang town and has never had such a close conversation with a strange man, so she can't help but feel a little nervous. Seeing that it was Zuyun who took the initiative to mention visiting Zhuyang Tower, he simply focused on introducing the relationship between Zhuyang Tower and the formation. This satisfied Zuyun's thoughts. As he walked all the way from the top of the building to the bottom, he paid attention and was completely sure that this was the 9 turns and 9 suns formation that Sun Suanhua taught him. However, there are a total of 81 changes in the 9 turn 9 yang formation. Zuyun has only confirmed that this is one of 3 types, because there are still several rooms and he cannot be sure. But despite this, Zuyun's chances of breaking out of the formation and running away have increased countless times. Of course, breaking the formation and running away does not mean destroying the formation. If this is the case, Master Zhuyang who set up the formation will definitely find something, so he can only find the route out of the formation and leave here quietly. Xianxia, I'm a little tired. Can you take me to a room to rest? Zuyun looked through the door, watching the people coming and going on the street, and said suddenly. Ah, good. Mu Kingzin quickly agreed, then turned around and took Zuyun to the top of the building. Taking advantage of the strip, Zuyun observed carefully again and slowly drew a picture in his mind of the route he had just memorized. Back on the top floor, Mu Kingzin took him to a door. Mr. Yun, please stay here for now. It will take a few days for Grandpa to collect medicine. If you need anything, you can go out and call me. I will live in another room one side. Zuyun looked in the direction of Mu Kingzin's finger and found that she lived on the side of Zhuyang Jinren's alchemy room. He frowned secretly. Wasn't Mu Kingzin afraid that the furnace would explode when Master Zhuyang was refining elixirs? With Zhuyang Jinren's dangerous operation of changing the configuration of the elixir at will, even if he is not careful, it will be easy to explode the furnace. It is more likely to directly blow up the 9 turns and 9 suns formation. Master Yun, what's wrong? Seeing that Zuyun was slightly absent-minded, Mu Kingzin looked back and forth a few times and found that his eyes were fixed on the door of her room. Although he asked so, his heart was racing like a deer. Could it be that Mr. Yun wanted to live closer to me? No, Zuyun quickly came to his senses and said, Xianxia, your grandfather is refining elixirs there, won't your practice be affected? Hearing what Zuyun said, Mu Kingzin seemed to think of something. It seems to be true. When I often practice, I can always feel some surge of spiritual power. Zuyun smiled and said, yes, the various elixirs needed for alchemy have spiritual power in themselves. If they are not controlled well. Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Mu Qingxin. I also asked Grandpa this question, but he said that he has elixir fire and is just refining intermediate elixirs, so there is no chance of any accidents happening. Zuyun was shocked when he heard this. Master Zhu Yang actually possesses Dan fire? No wonder he suddenly became obsessed with alchemy during the alchemy stage, and even wanted to change the recipe of the qi condensing pill. Not only in Yezhou, but even in Yunzhou, very few people would choose to refine elixirs, draw talismans, or refine weapons. Only those who have no talent in cultivation would enter the Tao through this method. Just like Sun Xuanhua, his talent is quite poor, but his other methods are extraordinary. Zuyun is very clear about the role of pill fire. Although he has never used his own pill fire to refine pills, Sun Xuanhua has mentioned pill fire in front of him more than once, and its role is by no means limited to refining pills. At this time, Zuyun suddenly thought of the reason why Master Zhu Yang wanted to leave it here. He wanted to protect Mu Qingxin and enter the secret realm. The secret realm is the best time to obtain genius treasures in the recent period. But why do you choose to use the identity of grandson-in-law? Are you trying to cover it up or keep it secret? So why did Zhu Yang Genren offend the Heirizong so forcefully? Just when Zuyun was completely confused, a loud shout suddenly came from outside the building, Heiori Sek Jinlun, come to pay a visit to Master Zhu Yang. As soon as the words fell, a powerful coercion passed through the 9 turns and 9 suns formation and locked tightly on Zuyun. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 139. It's another pill-forming period. Feeling this huge aura, Zuyun was horrified. The most important thing was that he actually claimed to be from the Heiori sect. Just after crossing the Hongduan Mountains, we encountered 2 Dan formation stages in succession. Are there so many pill-forming periods in Yezhou? At this time, a green light suddenly emitted from Mu Qingxin's chest. After firmly covering her body, it quickly branched out and shot towards Zuyun. Immediately, the power was reduced a lot. Zuyun took a long breath and looked up at Mu Qingxin. She walked to the window gracefully and said softly to the figure floating in the air, stepping on 2 halo wheels, Mu Qingxin of Zhuyang Gate has seen Jin Elder Lun. Grandpa just left and is not in Zhuyang Tower. Huh, Elder Jinlun snorted coldly, his eyes as sharp as falcons, locked on Mu Qingxin. Girl Mu, your grandfather just left you in Zhuyang Town, aren't you afraid that this elder will also take you down? Has Zhuyang Tower been smashed? If Elder Jinlun really wants to do this, then Mu Qingxin has no choice. You are a senior in the middle stage of pill formation. Mu Qingxin does not dare to do anything, so he has to wait for his grandfather to come back with the speed and the 9 turns and 9 yang formation. Hearing this, Elder Jinlun's face instantly darkened. Mu Yetu, are you mocking me for not being as powerful as your grandfather? Master Zhu Yang only broke through to the late stage of pill formation after he established the Zhu Yang sect. In terms of realm, he is indeed a level higher than Elder Jinlun. Don't dare, Mu Qingxin shook her head quickly and said, you are a senior of the Heiori section in terms of identity, status, and reputation in Yezhou, my Zhu Yang clan cannot compare with you. Ha ha ha, Elder Jinlun laughed wildly, and suddenly his body turned into a stream of light. Mu Qingxin just blinked, and the stream of light returned to human form a few feet in front of him. Girl Mu, what you said is quite right. Actually, what this elder heard is not like that. Do you know what Master Zhu Yang said to our disciple? Although the 9 turns and 9 suns formation could protect Mukingzin and was blessed by green beads, Mukingzin did not feel any pressure at all. But Elder Jinlun's eyes were as if they were real, and Mukingzin felt as powerful as the sky falling, as if he would be shattered into pieces in an instant just by blinking his eyes. With such condescending and aggressive words, Mukingzin could only grit her teeth and said, "Elder Jinlun, I really don't know." While speaking, the green bead on Mukingzin's chest suddenly revealed a ball of green light again. "Hey, your beads are pretty good. Are they wood spirit beads?" Just after he finished speaking, Elder Jinlun shook his head. "Master Zhu is very good at picking. Even if you are his granddaughter, you won't know how to pick such a treasure. Put it on you." Mukingzin forced a smile and said, "Elder Jinlun has good eyesight. This is just a jade bead with a single wood attribute." "Humph, don't think that if you say something nice, this elder will just leave." After saying that, he turned his attention to Zuyun, who was not far behind Mukingzin, and said with a half smile, "You are the elder of Zhu. Did go just recruit a grandson-in-law?" Mukingzin's face was extremely ugly, but she had no time to refute at this time. Instead, she hurriedly helped Zuyun and said, "Elder Jinlun, everything is a misunderstanding. Mr. Yun is a monk who just came from Yunzhou. He is not from Wanjian Mountain." "Huh? Are you from Yunzhou?" A look of surprise appeared on Elder Jinlun's face. He could tell at a glance that Zuyun was just a monk who had just broken through to the foundation building stage. His spiritual sense swept through and he felt Zuyun's bone age is only about 20 years old. He was greatly surprised. Could such a talented monk appear in Yunzhou? The people of Yunzhou have never been taken seriously by the people of Yezhou. Even if Wang Jianshan went to Yunzhou to recruit sword cultivators, it was only because of the specialness of sword cultivators. The requirements for spiritual roots are not that high. As long as they have 3 spiritual roots, need to be able to break through to the 6th level of Qi refining before the age of 20. This is something everyone in Yezhou knows. Zuyun personally destroyed his magic sword in front of the Haori sect disciples, and this matter has been reported to Elder Jinlun. "Then what is your natal magic weapon?" "A person can only have one natal magic weapon. Zuyunzao is mentally connected with Daoliulijing, so he cannot have another natal magic weapon." "Senior, I don't have a natal magic weapon." Zuyun shook his head and said with a bitter look on his face, "If it weren't for this, I wouldn't have come to Yezhou to look for opportunities." Elder Jinlun obviously didn't believe it. Yunzhou was already lacking in spiritual energy. Except for sword cultivators, monks who practiced other spells needed spiritual energy to support them. Therefore, only through the blessing of natal magic weapons can the power of spells be made greater. He stared at Zuyun with bright eyes and found that he didn't seem to be lying. As everyone knows, Zuyun really has no experience in using natal magic weapons. The Dao-glazed mirror is more of a space outside his body, a place for practice and storage. "Then do you know the Lingjian sect?" Zuyun was shocked and said, "Junior knows. Lingjian sect is a large sect in Yunzhou, and many monks are proud to join Lingjian sect. But Junior is not talented enough, so he joins Lookout Immortal sect and practices fire spells." Only then did he recall that after staying in Yunzhou for so many years, he only knew 2 sect forces. Wangxian sect is an abandoned section. He believes that Elder Jinlun does not know about this section as long as he is not from Lingjian sect and has no relationship with Wanjian Mountain. He may be safe today. As he spoke, he quickly stretched out his right palm, silently chanted the spell of the fire separation curse in his heart, and a flame quickly rose from his palm. Elder Jinlun nodded slightly. Zuyun was just an ant in his eyes. As long as he had nothing to do with Wanjian Mountain, he would naturally not bully such a junior, and he was from Yunzhou. And this time he came here to give Zhu Genren a warning. If it weren't for the fact that Haori sect had been fighting with Wanjian Mountain recently, it might be that sect master Li Chengan came here in person. Even if Zhu Genren was in the late Jindan stage, he would not have a good end against Li Chengan, the leader of a sect who had been in the late stage for many years. After all, Haori sect had dozens of Jindan stages, and his Juyang sect only had one Juyang Jinren. Even if his Juzwen Juyang formation was strong, it could not withstand the joint bombardment of so many Jindan stages. And what Juyang Jinren relied on was that Haori sect did not want to lose Jindan stages to a force like him. Since true man Juyang is not here, this elder also disdains to bully you two juniors. Elder Jinlun turned his gaze back to Mu Kingzin. Tell your grandfather to come back and meet me at Kinlan Peak. Mu Kingzin let out a long sigh, knowing that today's calamity was over. Although Elder Jinlun could not break the 9 transformations 9 Yang formation, it would also cause great damage to her. This is an incomparable gap in realm. Yes, Elder Jinlun. Mu Kingzin said very respectfully, and did not dare to say another word about the words that just called True Man Juyang an old dog. Elder Jinlun turned around and left, and in a moment he had turned into a light spot in the air. Mu Kingzin sat on the ground without any image, sweating profusely. And Zuyun was also full of emotion in his heart. His strength could travel the entire Yunzhou at will, not to mention traveling all over the world, but he also had the ability to retreat unscathed when encountering any danger. But it was only more than 2 hours, and he could die at any time. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He still needed to become stronger if he wanted to find Ergu. So should he stay here temporarily and wait with Master Juyang and the fake snake until the secret realm opens, or continue to look for a way to break the formation in the next few days and leave quietly? He has half a year to stay, but with Mu Kingzin and Master Juyang here, he has no chance to enter the Daoliuli realm to practice. But if he leaves, there is only one place to go, that is Yaluo Mountain in Beyazhu. But the journey is long, and it is inevitable that there will be troubles on the way. If he encounters a powerful senior in the Jindan stage again, how should he deal with it? Run. The ordinary foundation-building disciples of Haori sect can chase him like a stray dog. Where can he run to in an unfamiliar place? Just when he was thinking about it, Mu Kingzin suddenly stood up, turned around and walked towards him, and the opening of his mouth startled Zuyun into a cold sweat. Mr. Yun, you are not from Wangxian sect. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 140. Before Zuyun could figure out how to respond, Mu Kingzin chuckled and said, Young Master Yun is not aware of something. A few years ago, I met 2 people in the town who claimed to be the master and deputy master of Wangxian sect. Monk. Zuyun did not speak, but looked at Mu Kingzin steadily. They also said that Yunzhou was barren and the sect was destroyed and unable to continue to develop and grow, so they planned to come to the secret realm of Yeazhu to try it out. And there are only 2 of them left in the entire section. Zuyun was silent for a long time, and then suddenly said, Where are they now? I don't know. Mu Kingzin shook her head, maybe she went near Zilang Peak. After all, so many years have passed, and the secret realm has not been open for long. Zuyun could feel that Mu Kingzin had no ill intentions, and he felt a little relieved. Is the secret realm on the Zilang Peak side? Asking this does not mean that he has become more interested in the secret realm, nor does he have any intentions towards the 2 people of Wangxian sect, but because he thinks that if he really wants to go to the secret realm, he can no longer pretend to be a disciple of Wangxian sect in the future. Identity. Although the other party is only 2 people in the foundation building stage, if they meet, there is no guarantee that the other party will think that they have intentions. Thinking of this, Zuyun said to Mu Kingzin, Fairy Mu, please forgive me, Yun is actually a casual cultivator. Hearing this, Mu Kingzin sighed softly, Master Yun doesn't need to be so cautious when he comes here. Yeazhu is a vast land with abundant resources, and it's not a place that eats people. Zuyun disagreed and thought to himself, you have the support of Master Juyang who is in the late stage of pill formation, and you are in the 9-turn-9 yang formation. How could you know that if I am not careful, it will not be enough for me to die 1,000 or 800 times? At this time, Mu Qingxin reminded again, by the way, Mr. Yun must remember when my grandfather comes back, and don't say that he is a disciple of Wangxian sect. Zhu Yun was very surprised. Why? Did those two people offend Master Zhu Yang? From what Mu Qingxin said just now, we learned that the two men from Wangxian sect should have been here before and had not been made any trouble. With the strength of Master Zhu Yang, how could the two of them escape and ascend to heaven if something like this happened? Mu Qingxin shook his head and said, I heard them say that Wangxian sect was destroyed by a pavilion master named Zaofa Pavilion, and there was a sect called Zaofa sect not far from the north of Zhuhao Mountains, which was stronger than me. Zhu Yang section, it's even better. And according to what I asked, the pavilion master's surname is Fu, and the core disciples of the Zaofa sect are all named Fu. Zhu Yun's heart froze, and Fu Taran's name immediately appeared in his mind. How could he not be clear about Zaofa Pavilion? Even he could guess at this moment that there was an inevitable connection between the two. At the same time, he also understood what Mu Qingxin meant, because she was afraid that he would cause trouble for no reason again. Grandpa has a lot of quarrels with the Zaofa sect, and he also heard me talk about the Wangxian sect, so you are afraid that Master Zhu Yang will know that I lied to him? Zhu Yun interrupted Mu Qingxin and asked with a frown, if this is really the case, it's really a bit troublesome. Since it's not convenient to pretend to be Wangxian sect, I just don't pretend, so I simply said, Xianxia, this is my first time in Yaezhu, so please bear with me. Well, Mr. Yun, just say that he is a casual cultivator. After saying that, Mu Qingxin explained some things to pay attention to in Zhuyang Tower, and then hurried back to his room. After calming down, he took out a normal qi condensing pill and swallowed it to replenish the spiritual power consumed by driving the green bead. After Zhu Yun saw Mu Qingxin closing the door, he turned around and pushed the door open to enter the house. This is a very ordinary room, no different from the inn where Zhu Yun once stayed. He took out a piece of paper and a homemade charcoal pen from his storage bag, sat down at the small table, and drew the known layout of the 9-turn-9 yang formation in the 9 yang tower. This painting lasts for an hour. Clang. At this time, there was a soft knock on the door outside the house, and then Mu Qingxin's voice came, Mr. Yun. Zhu Yun quickly stuffed the reversed 9-turn-9 yang formation diagram into his arms, and then Mu Qingxin pushed the door open and walked in. He was angry in his heart. Do people from Yaezhu enter other people's houses so casually? But then he thought that the place he was in still belonged to someone else, and he felt quite helpless. This feeling made him uncomfortable, who was used to being alone. Mr. Yun, what is this? Mu Qingxin glanced at the charcoal pen in Zhu Yun's hand. This black gadget had no spiritual power. What was a person in the foundation building stage doing with it? Zhu Yun had already hidden the formation map, but couldn't resist Mu Qingxin's curiosity, so he simply took out a piece of white paper and said, I've been learning to draw talismans recently. This one doesn't need to be sharpened, so it saves time on practice. Save your mind. As he spoke, Zhu Yun drew the pattern of the fireball talisman with one stroke on the paper, which surprised Mu Qingxin. The reason why Zhu Yun is like this is not just to find reasons to fool him. It is indeed easy for Mu Qingxin to hide it, but what about the return of Master Zhu Yang? Therefore, Zhu Yun is also extremely cautious. He would rather reveal some of his skills, but also ensure that he can give a reasonable explanation. It is not as easy for a monk in the pill-forming stage to sneak attack on the foundation building stage as he is in the qi refining stage, not to mention that Zhu Yang Genren is still a strong man in the late stage pill-forming stage. I didn't expect you could draw talismans. Mu Qingxin was amazed for a moment, then suddenly looked at Zhu Yun warily and said, You are not a member of the Fu sect, are you? As she spoke, She took 2 steps back and touched the beads between her chest with her right hand. Green light came out from between her fingers, and she had the momentum to attack if she disagreed. Looking at the startled Mu Kingzin, Zuyun couldn't help but smile bitterly again. Fairy Mu, I just came from Yunzhou, how could I be a member of the Zhaofu sect? Besides, what I drew is just the most common fireball talisman, a very simple thing. If you want to use this as evidence, it's a bit far-fetched. As he said that, Zuyun didn't care whether Mu Kingzin believed it or not, and directly took out a piece of elementary talisman paper from the storage bag, and prepared cinnabar and a spirit pen. In the blink of an eye, a fireball talisman was drawn, and it was done in one go. Mu Kingzin looked at the decorations on the table, and then cast her eyes on the talisman that had just been drawn, but she didn't recognize it, and asked, "Is this the fireball talisman?" He has been growing up under the protection of the Nine Yang Master, and he doesn't need such elementary things at all, so naturally he can't recognize it. Of course, Zuyun chuckled, took the fireball talisman in his hand and began to charge it with spirit. Under his deliberate action, after more than 10 breaths, a talisman containing the 4 spiritual powers of gold, water, fire, and earth took shape. He didn't dare to use the chaotic spiritual power to charge his spirit, let alone use only the fire spiritual power. Try it. Zuyun smiled and handed the fireball talisman to Mu Kingzin. Mu Kingzin was skeptical, and after taking it, she whispered, "Mr. Yun, it is true that the Zhaofu sect and my Zhuyang sect have had a conflict, please forgive me." After that, she took the fireball talisman, flashed outside, and poured a little spiritual power into the empty window, and smashed the fireball talisman out. Boom! The talisman instantly turned into a fist-sized fireball, and after hitting the invisible transparent barrier of the Zhuzuan Zhuyang formation, it made a muffled sound, and the fireball also disintegrated. Not even a trace of dust was raised. The weak power was beyond Mu Kingzin's expectation. He seemed to mutter to himself, "Such a weak talisman, is there anyone who uses it?" Zuyun secretly laughed in his heart. If he used the chaotic spiritual power, the power would be far more than this. If he used the fire spiritual power, I'm afraid it would be shocking. But he said lightly, "Yes, such a weak talisman, I just drew it for fun, how could it be a disciple of the Fu sect? But before the foundation building period, this talisman is an important means for me to accompany myself." Seeing that Mu Kingzin seemed to believe it a little, Zuyun also made up some experiences of fighting with people with talismans. 3/10 of it was true and 7/10 was false. Anyway, there was no way to verify it, and it was fine as long as he could get away with it. He didn't know that Mu Kingzin listened with relish and was fascinated, because these were experiences she had never had before. When Zuyun was getting more and more excited and his mouth was dry, Mu Kingzin suddenly grabbed the charcoal pencil on the small table. Zuyun was stunned and said quickly, "This pencil is dirty." Mu Kingzin let go of her hand, and sure enough, the black powder of the charcoal pencil was left between several fingers. She immediately threw the pencil on the table in anger. "I asked you to teach me how to draw this elementary talisman." After reciting a few formulas silently, the black mark left by the charcoal pencil disappeared instantly, and the white fingers returned to their original state. Zuyun smiled and said, "Fairy Mu, the power of this elementary talisman is only a blow in the chi refining stage. What's the point of learning it? Just playing around, you can draw one so quickly. If we prepare more, then in the secret realm, maybe we can confuse the powerful enemies in the foundation establishment stage." As soon as the voice fell, the cold voice of the Nine Yang Master suddenly came from above their heads. "Is there no hope for cultivation, or is my granddaughter not pretty enough, so you are playing some tricks of the Fu sect here?"